Introduction to the conflict. Sergeant Zix Tal stared intently at the holographic battle map flickering in front of him, his tentacles twitching with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The pulsing red dot representing their quarry, a human, or as they had come to refer to him, a Deathworlder, was still moving. It was an absurd situation that had escalated into an intergalactic farce over the past 3 solar cycles. "You've got to be kidding me," Zix muttered under his breath, disbelief lacing his voice. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Core BP, emitted a sound that could only be described as a snort gurgle. If it is Sarge, then the universe has one hell of a sense of humor. Around them, the rest of the alien Marine squad huddled close, their expressions a comical mix of awe, horror, and what could only be described as utter confusion. They had initially approached this mission with cocky confidence. After all, what chance did a single human have against a full squad of the Galactic Confederation's finest? They had expected to wrap this up in mere hours, maybe a day at most, but how wrong they had been. Zix waved a tentacle dismissively at the holographic display. "All right, you overgrown amoebas," he growled sarcastically. "Let's review our spectacular failures so far." As he spoke, he zoomed out on the map, revealing a series of red X's scattered across its surface, each one marking an encounter where they had faced off against this lone human only to have their plans unravel spectacularly. "Here is where we first cornered him." Zix pointed at an X near what remained of their target's crash site. "And here's where Private Gloop lost his lunch and his dignity." The Marines collectively winced at the memory of how Gloop had been sent flying into a tree by an improvised weapon crafted from wreckage. It was not pretty. "Then we had this lovely spot," Zix continued, his voice rising in pitch as he struggled to contain his laughter. "This is where our dear friend decided to play catch with our own plasma grenades." He paused for dramatic effect before adding with glee, "I particularly enjoyed when he yelled pull before lobbing them back at us." Lieutenant Seablip raised a tentacle defensively. "In our defense, Sarge, who could have predicted he'd be crazy enough to catch plasma grenades?" "Oh, I don't know," Zix replied with exaggerated sarcasm. "Maybe anyone who's ever heard the term Deathworlder before. But please continue dazzling me with your brilliant tactical insights." Lieutenant Quarblap's skin flushed deep purple in embarrassment as he lowered his tentacle. "Moving on," Zix said with mock seriousness as he highlighted another X on the map. "This delightful location is where our esteemed human demonstrated his apparent immunity to our neurotoxins by using them as, what did he call it? Hot sauce." The squad shuddered collectively at the memory of witnessing him downing vials of their most potent nerve agent while smacking his lips and declaring it zesty but could use more kick. "And let's not forget yesterday's fiasco," Zix continued, now almost hysterical with laughter. "We thought we finally had him cornered in that cave. We sealed off every exit and pumped in enough sedative gas to knock out a Kraken beast. Then we stormed in only to find nothing." He paused for effect, letting out an incredulous chuckle. "Just a crude stick figure drawn on the wall with 'better luck next time' suckers scrawled beneath it." "But now," Zix said, his voice suddenly serious as he zoomed in on the current red dot on their map, "we come to our latest cluster. So would someone care to explain how exactly this human is still moving after taking a direct hit from our heavy plasma cannon?" Silence fell over the group as they recalled witnessing that moment. The human caught in open ground without cover when their cannon fired true. For one glorious instant, they had thought it was over. Then smoke cleared to reveal him still standing there, a sizable hole burned through his chest. What had that insane Deathworlder done? Zix recalled aloud. The memory was surreal. He had looked down at his wound, looked back up at them, and laughed. Well, he had said cheerfully for someone with such a grievous injury, "That's going to leave a mark." Then he charged them, with that gaping hole big enough to fit a Grixie melon. I don't understand." Private Swarich stammered nervously. "Our briefing said humans were Class 12 Deathworlders, but this This is impossible. Zix turned all four eyes on Sworech with an expression that mixed pity and amusement. "Oh, my sweet summer larva," he said condescendingly. "Allow me to enlighten you on the true nature of the beast we're dealing with." He waved another tentacle and summoned an image of Earth above their battle map. The planet appeared innocuous enough. Blue ocean swirling around green and brown land masses beneath white clouds, but Zix knew better than that. To an educated eye like his own, it was nothing short of a death trap of epic proportions. "This," he declared dramatically while zooming in on various regions of Earth, "is what humans call home. A planet so hostile and unforgiving that it makes our toughest training simulations look like a relaxing day at B-Spa." He highlighted deserts hot enough to boil your innards and frozen wastelands that would shatter you like cheap glass. "Oh," he added gleefully while pulling up images of volcanic eruptions spewing molten rock from fissures in the ground. The Marines stared at these images in horror and disbelief. "But wait," Zix continued enthusiastically. "There's more. This planet is constantly bombarded by radiation from its star. The atmosphere is laced with corrosive oxygen. And don't even get me started on its wildlife." He displayed images of lions, bears, sharks, creatures that would terrify any sane being. "These lovely critters, they're what humans consider normal. In fact," he added with incredulity, "some keep smaller versions as pets." Private Zorbs made a sound that could only be described as a whimper. "And here's the cherry on top of this delightful death Sunday," Zix concluded dramatically while letting out an exasperated sigh. "Humans are not content merely surviving this hellscape. Oh no. They thrive in it. They spread across every corner of their world, adapting to conditions that would kill any sane species." He paused for effect as he let this information sink into his squadmates' minds. They weren't just hunting any ordinary being. They were hunting something that laughed in death's face. "So," Lieutenant Corbel said hesitantly after processing all this information, "what you're saying is we're royally." Zix turned toward him with an amused grin spreading across his face. "Oh, my dear Lieutenant, F*** doesn't even begin to cover it. We're not just fed. We're—" He paused, searching for words before finally exclaiming triumphantly, "We're as fed as a Zarian slime slug in a salt mine." The squad stared at him wide-eyed. A mixture of awe and terror painted across their faces. "But fear not," Zix continued passionately, "for we are Galactic Confederation Marines. We do not go gentle into that good night. We rage against death itself." Just then an alarm blared from above them. The red dot representing their human target was moving again and heading straight for their position. "Well, ladies and gentlemen in various states of matter," Zix announced dramatically while suppressing laughter bubbling up within him, "it looks like our one-man apocalypse is coming right for us. Any last words before we face our doom?" Private Zorak raised a trembling tentacle hesitantly. "I think I need to change my exoskeleton." Lieutenant C. Blap snorted derisively beside him. "Get in line, rookie. I've been holding it since that lunatic caught my plasma grenade." Zix looked around at his squad, a strange mix of pride and pity welling up inside him. They were scared, yes, but still here, ready to face whatever insanity awaited them from this single human being. "All right, you magnificent bastards," he shouted softly, now almost fondly, toward them all gathered together, their under looming shadows cast by trees overhead swaying gently against winds swirling through jungle air thick with anticipation, hanging heavily around them like fog rolling over hillsides far away from home base out there somewhere beyond reach. "Let's give this Deathworlder a welcome he'll never forget, assuming anything we do actually registers as threat." As they scrambled into positions, setting up what would likely be hilariously inadequate defenses against incoming chaos swirling around them like tempestuous storms brewing just out of sight beyond horizon lines, stretching endlessly forward. Zix couldn't help but chuckle softly under breath, thinking back upon how someone had told him just last week, facing certain death at hands belonging single being from Backwater Planet would have made laughable joke too absurd even contemplate seriously. Now here they stood ready facing inevitable defeat, hoping somehow, maybe just maybe, it might still prove interesting enough. Make news back home. The ground began shaking violently beneath feet, sending vibrations coursing through bodies standing firm against impending doom, approaching rapidly toward them. "Here we go, boys and girls," muttered Zix quietly, feeling manic grins spread across face, while adrenaline surged through veins, pumping faster than ever before, racing heartbeats echoing loudly within ears, ringing loudly amidst silence, surrounding everything else fading away. "Let's see if we can't give this human run money, or at least trip him up bit before uses us impromptu juggling balls." And thus began final battle between alien soldiers facing off against unstoppable force, embodied within single human determined survive whatever insanity universe threw their way. The human's resilience. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Sergeant Zix Tal faced the human, who stood amidst the wreckage of the jungle, seemingly unbothered by the chaos around him. The alien soldiers braced themselves, their weapons at the ready, but the sight before them was both bewildering and absurd. Here was a creature they had been hunting for cycles, now appearing almost jovial despite the gaping wound in his chest. "Well, hello there," the human called out, his voice cheerful as he waved a hand. "Lovely day for a fight to the death, isn't it?" His grin was disarming, and for a moment, Zix found himself questioning his own sanity. How could this creature, this Deathworlder, remain so upbeat in the face of overwhelming odds? Zix took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "Human," he began, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we promise to make your death quick and relatively painless." The human tilted his head, considering Zix's words as if they were an amusing riddle. Then he burst into laughter, a sound so genuine that it sent shivers down the spines of every Marine present. "Oh, my dear," he said between breaths, wiping a tear from his eye. "What are you again? Squids? Octopi? Cuttlefish?" He paused for dramatic effect. "That's adorable. Really it is." Zix felt his tentacles twitch in frustration. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. They were the Galactic Confederation Marines, trained elite soldiers feared across the galaxy. And yet here they stood, facing a single human who seemed to find joy in their predicament. "But let me counter with an offer of my own," the human continued, spreading his arms wide. The motion caused a disturbing squelching sound from his chest wound, but he didn't seem to notice or care. "How about you surrender, and I promise to only use half of you as makeshift weapons to beat the other half into submission." A moment of stunned silence fell over the squad as Private Zorak whimpered softly beside Zix. The absurdity of the situation was almost too much to bear. "You can't be serious," Zix sputtered, waving his tentacles in agitation. "There are 12 of us, and only one of you." The human's grin widened, taking on a predatory edge that made Zix's skin crawl. "Exactly. 12 of you against one of me seems hard to believe," he replied with a glint in his eye that suggested he found their predicament amusing. "Enough games," Zix shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. "We will not be intimidated by your bravado. Prepare to engage." He signaled to his squad to take positions behind cover while keeping their weapons trained on the human. As they moved into formation, Zix couldn't shake off the feeling that they were about to make a monumental mistake. The human had already proven himself capable of turning their tactics against them time and time again. What if this was just another ploy? What if he had some hidden advantage they weren't aware of? The human simply stood there, unperturbed by their movements, still grinning like a lunatic at a carnival. "Oh, come on. Don't be shy. I promise I won't bite much." He winked at them mockingly. With a nod from Zix, one of the Marines, a sharpshooter named Lieutenant Corps BP, took aim and fired a plasma bolt toward the human. It was meant to be a warning shot, a demonstration of their firepower, but it was also an act of desperation. The bolt streaked through the air with deadly precision, but missed its mark entirely as the human ducked low in an almost acrobatic maneuver that left Zix momentarily stunned. He rolled forward and sprang back up onto his feet with an agility that belied his injuries. "Nice try," the human called out cheerfully as he dusted himself off like nothing had happened. He seemed unfazed by their attempts to intimidate him. If anything, it only fueled his amusement. "Focus fire," Zix barked urgently as panic began to creep into his voice. They couldn't allow this creature to gain any more confidence. They had to overwhelm him before he turned this encounter into another farce. The squad opened fire simultaneously, plasma bolts lighting up the jungle as they rained down on the human like angry stars falling from heaven. But instead of dodging or seeking cover, he began dancing through their barrage with an unnatural grace that left them all slack-jawed. "Is this all you've got?" He taunted mid-leap, spinning away from another bolt aimed at him, as if he were performing in some twisted circus act, rather than fighting for survival. Zix watched in disbelief as one by one, each shot missed its target while the human continued to evade them effortlessly. He was like water flowing around rocks in a stream, impossible to pin down or capture. "Change tactics," Zix shouted desperately as he tried to regain command over his squad's fraying nerves. "Flank him. Surround him." But even as they attempted to reposition themselves strategically around him, it became increasingly clear that their efforts were futile against this relentless adversary who seemed impervious to their attacks. With newfound energy and enthusiasm, the human launched himself toward one of their flanking Marines, Private Gloop, who had hesitated just long enough for disaster to strike. In what felt like slow motion, Gloop raised his weapon, but before he could pull the trigger, the human collided with him like a freight train. They both went tumbling into a nearby thicket with a crash that echoed through the jungle. "Gloop!" Zix shouted in horror as he rushed forward only to see Gloop's weapon fly from his grasp amidst branches snapping underfoot. The human emerged from the foliage laughing uproariously while holding Gloop's weapon aloft like some twisted trophy, a sight so surreal it left everyone momentarily stunned into silence. "Look what I found," he exclaimed cheerfully before turning toward Zix and brandishing Gloop's weapon like it was nothing more than a toy. "Can I borrow this? I think it'll suit me just fine." Zix felt something inside him snap, a mixture of rage and disbelief boiling over into sheer panic as he realized how quickly everything had spiraled out of control. "Regroup," he yelled frantically as every Marine scrambled back into formation, weapons raised high once more even though doubt gnawed at their resolve. But before they could fully re-establish their positions or formulate another plan of attack, the human leveled Gloop's weapon at them, with surprising ease despite its size compared to him. "I think it's time for some payback," he declared gleefully before pulling the trigger without hesitation. A volley of plasma bolts erupted from Gloop's weapon, each shot tearing through foliage and striking dangerously close to where Zix stood frozen in shock alongside his squadmates who were equally paralyzed by disbelief. "Fall back," Zix shouted, finally breaking free from paralysis just as chaos erupted around them. Trees splintering under fire, while cries rang out amidst confusion swirling through air thick with smoke rising up from scorched earth beneath them. As they stumbled backward, trying desperately not lose sight of their target amidst fray unfolding around them, the realization hit hard. They weren't just facing any ordinary foe. They were facing someone who thrived on chaos itself. Zix struggled against mounting despair threatening to consume him whole while trying to maintain semblance control over situations spiraling rapidly beyond reach. But then something deep within ignited. A flicker hope igniting flames, determination burning brightly against overwhelming odds stacked heavily against them all. "We are Galactic Confederation Marines," he roared defiantly, rallying troops behind him even amidst chaos surrounding them, all now feeling renewed sense purpose, igniting spark courage within hearts, once more beating strong against impossible odds. "Let's show this Deathworlder just how resilient we can be." And so began another round. The battle between alien soldiers determined reclaimed dignity lost while facing off against unyielding spirit embodied within single human refusing bow down before anyone or anything.